Hello, welcome to Awakening with Soulspirational. I'm Tish. I want to talk about brotherhood, being brothers. You may have seen a previous episode of mine called Humanity. I want to go in about the brotherhood, about how all of us are brothers and sisters. So some of you are probably already familiar with the book I'm about to show you. Either you've read it, you know of it, you may love it, you may not like it at all. You may have no knowledge, I don't know. But I've been reading the book, A Course in Miracles. I gotta tell you, I have known about this book probably close to 2 decades, 15 plus years. Anytime it was brought to my attention, I felt resistance. For different reasons. It recently came back around into my life, and completely happenstance, right? Although I don't really believe too much in coincidences. I was recently at the bookstore with my daughter, my grandkids, and up in Fairlawn, and so at one point I went up, I wanted to look at tarot cards. Nothing was jumping out at me. So, okay, but I knew I was led upstairs for a reason. I'm very much one for my intuition. I try to follow where I'm led intuitively. So I thought, all right, I'm going to start going through some of the spiritual books or self-help books. And I started to, check out the spines of the books and, what's jumping out. I picked something out, kind of thumb through it, put it back. But I had come to at some point, came across the A Course in Miracles. And I opened it and I kind of thumbed through it. I may have had 5 seconds to the book. I literally pulled it out, kind of thumbed it and just put it back. And then I continued to look, and it was starting to register with me that I wasn't resistant of it. I think it was almost habitual to just kind of put it back and, from previous experiences. So then as I continue to look through the titles of the books, I get to another copy of A Course in Miracles, and it was all sealed in plastic wrap. And I thought, it's I have a touch of OCD. So part of me is thinking, hey, this belongs over there. But I also know intuitively that sometimes these are messages for us. So I took a moment asking myself, is this something that I really want? Because I'm so used to being resistant to it, that it was kind of weird that I wasn't necessarily resistant. I was just in this odd state of being about it. So I went back over and I pulled out the copy that was not sealed. And I'm thumbing again. I'm not really reading what's on the pages, I don't think. It was just more so getting a feel for what was in it without knowing what was in it. And really, the title, A Course in Miracles, what doesn't sound lovely about that, right? So even though, again, I had resisted it for so long. And so I'm asking myself, is this something is it time? Are you trying to tell me that this is a book I need to get? And I could just feel the goosebumps, that knowingness that, yes, get the book. So I thought, well, all right. And there's some, and you may have experienced this as well, where you get a book, but then you wind up sitting on it for months, maybe even years. And then you find it because it kind of gets lost in the shuffle over the years. You find the book again, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I totally needed this right now. And sometimes that happens in the moment too, when we buy a book, when we're gripped reading through the book. So I got it because my intuition was telling me so, even though I could still feel this residual energy of, what are you doing? That's not something you've ever been interested in. So anyway, that night I start reading. It was that night or the next night. And it's it's the psychology mixed in with spirituality, which intrigues me. So, and I love a challenge. And I'm looking at this book and how thin the pages are. It's 11,000 pages total. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to take me years to read. Am I ready to commit this kind of time to this book? I mean, I'm still questioning, even though my intuition told me to get this book, I still find this residual energy from the past years. So anyway, I start reading it and it intrigues me. And then before I know it, well, there's part of me that wanted to jump out in the first couple of chapters because but something, my intuition kept telling me, just stick with it, just stick with it. And there came a point in the book where it just really opened up to me. And I don't have the knowledge to really go in and discuss in depth A Course in Miracles. I'm not even, I'm more than a third of the way through the text. I've read through the manual for the teachers. I'm working with the workbook, but I'm not at that place yet to really dive deep into it. Other than to say that it's actually pretty exciting. It's not what I had expected it to be. I don't even know what I was expecting it to be, but I knew that there was, I understood that there was some type of a religious feel around it, that this book was supposed to have been channeled from Jesus. And that had put me off. I'm even though I'm in the spiritual world, when it comes to channeling, I am a bit of a skeptic, because I don't know, if I don't know you, and so I've read books that have been channeled. I've had other people suggest that I read other books that have been channeled. I take them through the perspective of the ones that I've read. What can I use for my healing? What can I use to help me so that I may help others? So in that context, it kind of almost, in one way, doesn't matter to me whether or not it's channeled. I'm looking for something that feels right for my energy, that makes sense through my filter, my life experiences, because if it helps me, then surely there are other people that it can help too. So that's how I tend to read channeled books when I do read them. And then from Jesus, so that kind of, But again, I went into reading this with the thought that this is help in healing myself and others. So regardless of who it was actually channeled by, and if a book is not speaking love to me, if it is something that feels dark or feels that it goes against my own soul, against my own spirit, then I'm not going to finish reading it. I found with A Course in Miracles that so many places within the book, and again, there are some places in the book where I felt like jumping out and just closing the book, being done with it. But then, again, something would tell me, just hold on. And I found myself, which I really don't do, I pulled out a highlighter and I started highlighting certain passages. Again, I'm going to go back to the OCD comment. To file a book with marker, it's just something a little weird in my head. So, but there's so much information. There's, again, some 1,100 pages that I need something easier to be able to go back to. And I really, some of these sentences, these statements were just screaming out to me. Okay. My interpretation thus far is it's about the separation that we have experienced from God, or universal mind, however you perceive it. So we're in this state of separation, and so we have been of two minds, one of God and one of ego. And oh my goodness, if you've been thinking a lot about the ego lately and wanting a good perspective, because I was waiting for the stuff about ego to end. I thought maybe it would be just a short something. No, this really feels, at least up to the point where I am in the text, very significant portion of this, of ego, or the mind of God. In reading through, even though they are using terms of Jesus and Holy Spirit, if you are not of a particular religion, if those words are, those names are uncomfortable for you, you'll see that this is not a religious text. So I would still suggest, if something has been calling you, there really is some brilliance within this book. I love how it speaks about brotherhood. And that does bring me back to the Bible of, do unto others as you'd have done to you. We look upon our brothers and our sisters as we look upon ourselves. And what we do to them, we're really doing to ourselves. So it's that reflection. If I am sending to you guilt or shame or anger, I'm going to wind up getting that back. So whether you want to call that karma, what I am putting out, I am getting back. One of the things the book talks about is that if we really want to keep something, then we have to give it away. So if we want to keep love, then we have to keep giving love. We just keep giving it and giving it and giving it, and we keep getting it back and getting it back. Well, then wouldn't it be true that the same concept would apply for anger? That if I keep giving out anger, sure enough, it's going to keep coming back. So if I could recognize where the anger is coming from, if it's part of the separation, and I'm not going to really go into that because it's however you interpret this, how you get into it, but getting back to the state of God, because if we are in the state of God, then we are in the state of love. And if we are in the state of love, it makes it really hard to hurt ourselves or others. Because in a state of God, if I am going to say something against a brother or a sister, then I'm saying it about me, because I am one of those that believe that we are all one, that all of us are from the same Creator. We have been created. We have God flowing through us. So if all of us are part of that source energy that we call God, or the universal mind, or the one consciousness, however you perceive it, well then, it's true then what I do to my brothers or my sisters, I am doing to me, because they're feeling that energy, and likewise, eventually it's going to reverberate back to me. So to bring us to that level of awareness, to love ourselves, to love our brothers and sisters, that when we hear the negative self-talk, it's the ego. It speaks about how the ego wants us to hurt. And I even thought about it as far as how we perceive ourselves in the physical body. How it serves the ego's purpose if we continue to beat ourselves up. That, I have to lose weight, I have to be really skinny, I have to be this or I have to be that because fill in the blank. As long as I am beating myself up because of this or that particular aspect of my physical being, that's making the ego happy, because then we're paying attention to the physical self, which means as long as we're doing this and we're beating ourselves up, then we're not in a state of God. So having those two different, our minds in two different places. And we can't, because at the moment that we're in the state of God, the state of love, we can't simultaneously be hurting. And likewise, if I'm in the midst of anger, it's really hard to feel love because I'm caught up in this emotion over here. When we recognize the divine spark, the divine light, the divinity within each and every one of our brothers and sisters, try it sometime, if you haven't already, to just look at your spouse or one of your children and see if you can see or feel that God light running through them? Can you recognize them as part of the creation? Can you see it or feel it in yourself? When we recognize that no one walking this earth is better than or less than anybody else, regardless of how much money you make or don't, regardless on what color you are, who you love, all the things in the physical world that some people will put some significance toward, we're all the same. Each and every one of us, if you believe in oneness, if you believe that God created all of us, then we're all part of God, which makes us one. We cannot both be separated from God and then just die and then go away and the energy does nothing or just float around the earth. I mean, what happens to it, right? Or we're part of this greater source, this higher power. In which case, again, if we are all one, what we do unto others, we are already doing to us. It's kind of like when you point a finger at somebody, 3 more are pointing back at you. So for us to take stock and not to be separated between the ego, which we're going to have that. We're still human beings. So this isn't about being perfect, because as long as we're walking the earth, we're not going to be perfect. But when we can recognize that nobody is better than or less than we are just on different parts of our journey. You know, I often think of the Wizard of Oz and how life sometimes will just grab us up and we're in that whirlwind of that tornado and things are just chaotic and it's like we can't see clear, we can't think, we're just trying to fight things off so that we don't get hurt, and then bam, we land. And then, you know, if we look at the Wizard of Oz, you know, the Munchkins coming out, we all know how it landed on one of the Wicked Witches and the ruby slippers, but the yellow brick road. And God, I love that movie. Each of us have our own road to travel. Some of us, it seems like, can go straighter. You know, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and that's kind of what goes through my head. And, you know, I see that some people, wow, you know, that's amazing, where they tend to just be able to they're just chucking along, right? And then some of us, it's like, oh my goodness, I really picked this really twisty, turny road to navigate in this particular lifetime. One is not any better than or any less than the other. This just happens to be the road that we are traveling in this particular lifetime. And we can either resent all the twists and the turns, or we can allow the journey itself to be like its own destination, so to speak. We can enjoy the journey every step of the way, even when darkness falls upon us and we have troubled times, because we're on earth. We're going to, right? There is such beauty in healing, and it doesn't feel like that in the moment. Because I even tell myself, like when I'm going through something, I hear myself say, Tish, this is the beauty in healing. And part of me is like, shut up, you know? But I do know that there is a beauty in healing. And when tragedy strikes, when challenges occur, I've experienced enough to know that one, brighter days are ahead. This is temporary, because life itself is temporary. None of this is forever. So whatever I'm going through in the moment, I don't have a choice but to get through, because what's my alternative? So I know that I'm going to get through it. I have learned more and more to ask through the grace of God. And now reading A Course in Miracles, it's even shifted that for me to, I used to think that there was something disempowering about letting go and letting God, because that was my ego wanting the control. And then I got to a point where it's like, you know what, sometimes that's all we can do is just let it go and let God, because otherwise we are driving ourselves insane, because there is this, whatever it is going on in life, we cannot control. And it's keeping us up at night. So then we're not getting a good night's sleep. So now we're off kilter the next day for work or with our kids, whatever it may be. And it's this cycle until finally we can just breathe and collapse and really get a good night's sleep, get some rest. And life is a process. So when situations happen, we do process through them as well. But when we are asking, through the grace of God, or asking for Jesus or the Holy Spirit to help guide us, to help lead us, and it is showing, in fact, there's I was asking, like, how am I going to apply this more in my everyday life? Because I know that we're still human beings, which means it's going to be very difficult for me just to be perfectly in the mind of God, staying within that energy of being of God, because I have all this other human stuff, physical, worldly stuff coming at me. So I have to address this stuff. I have family and friends. I have work. How am I going to address this? So I did a search on Google for A Course in Miracles, and I just started to swipe through, click into the next one, and I would, maybe click on one, watch a couple moments, and nope, that's not what I'm looking for. I didn't even know what I was looking for. I just knew that I would find it when I got there. Eventually, I came across Marianne Williamson talking about A Course in Miracles and manifesting. So I believe that manifesting is actually in the title of that particular video if you're interested. In listening to her explain things, she was saying something about, if I am making a choice between, I think she said Boston and Chicago, where should I move, these job prospects, maybe I'm being tugged towards Boston, but I can make more money in Chicago. So why would God want me to go to Boston if I can make more money in Chicago? Because we don't know the grander picture for our own lives. And yeah, Chicago may be offering more money, but Boston may be where our journey, where we're to travel. That there's something over here in Boston for us to find, for us to experience. These aren't her words verbatim, the gist of it. So because we aren't God himself, and we're still even coming to grips, I think it was so many of us of actually feeling God within instead of looking out, looking up to God. We don't know what's in our best interest. We may think we know, but oftentimes when there's a reason why we're grappling between the two, because we don't know. When we release it, when we ask the Holy Spirit or the higher self, God, Jesus, to, you know what? You tell me where to go, and I'm going to follow. I'm going to trust that you know more for me than my human mind consciously right now can understand, can know. And allowing that information to come to you, to be led, and then to trust that. I don't know. This book just, I love it. Again, there are parts where I feel my resistance still in it. There are parts of it that are redundant, but I think sometimes we need the redundancies. And it's probably my ego that's resisting it, huh? So, yeah. There's just so many beautiful things here. For me, I just want to honor and extend the love and the gratitude to my brothers and sisters. I have no idea how many people watch this show. How many people, I do have some numbers on YouTube of how many people are watching it. But I don't know who it's impacting. There are times even where I thought, oh, you know what? I don't know if anybody's watching this at all. Maybe I just need to stop doing the show. But then that voice inside says, you're not done yet. So sometimes there are more lulls between episodes because I'm one of those people, I have to feel the energy of something. Not have to, but I prefer to feel the energy of something before I get in front of my camera to start sharing it with you. I'm hoping that you can feel my love and my authenticity through this. It really is about honoring each other, loving each other. We don't have to know each other for me to love you. When somebody comes in and they're new to the group, there are certain aspects of them, even if they're in a very dark, heavy time of life, where this particular beauty, this energy just shines through them. And I love just kind of pulling that out, shining my light, which is God's light, which is shining through me, onto them. Look at this beauty in you. And as we find the light within, and as we feel that light within, that warmth, that beauty, the glow, it's easier to honor ourselves and to honor others. How much better would the world be if we would allow ourselves to as often as we can, to stay in a state of love, to honor our brothers and sisters, to honor ourselves the way that God would have us do. I don't know. I think the world would be a much more peaceful, beautiful place to be. We all have our purpose, whether or not we choose to listen, and in so many different ways. This just happens to be one of the ways in which I'm led to share love and light. If you haven't found yours, trust to know that you will if you're open, if that's what you choose. So thank you so much for watching this episode. I really appreciate it. You can get in touch with me if you have any questions. Otherwise, until next time, thank you, be well, and namaste.